Let's talk about something that is, for most of us, one of life's most terrifying experiences: losing everything. But what if hitting rock bottom wasn't actually the end? What if it was the start of something incredible? A real comeback. Let's dive in. This quote right here, it just gets right to the heart of what we're talking about today. It came from a man who had it all and then, boom, ended up homeless in New York. And it was right there, in that total emptiness, that he found something he never expected. He found out that when you lose all the things you thought you needed, you finally get to see what's truly real. But of course, before you can get to that kind of clarity, you have to go through the collapse itself. So what does it really feel like when your entire world just falls apart around you? Well, just imagine the story of pro tennis player James Blake. Back in 2004, his world didn't just fall apart, it absolutely imploded. First, a total freak accident in practice leaves him with a fractured neck. That injury sends him home, and he gets there just in time to watch his own father die from cancer. And as if that wasn't nearly enough, a virus then paralyzes half his face, messing with his vision, his balance, threatening his entire career. Just a complete and total collapse. And sometimes, this kind of thing can happen more than once. Take the incredible story of Mohan Valrani. He starts out as a refugee with only $7.50 to his name, and from that, builds a global business empire. But then, in 1981, war breaks out. A bomb hits one of his sites, oil prices totally crash, and his entire empire just crumbles to dust. So by 1986, his net worth is less than zero. And he's in a country with no bankruptcy laws, which means he could literally go to jail. Everyone, and I mean everyone, was telling him to just run. Skip town, escape the debt. The choice couldn't be clearer. Run and save yourself, or stay and face complete and utter ruin. He chose to stay. And that decision, that choice to stay, that's the pivot point. Because when you truly have nothing left to lose, this strange kind of power starts to emerge. Let's explore what that power really is. This quote just perfectly nails the paradox of hitting rock bottom. Think about it. The fear of losing things, our job, our money, our reputation, it controls so much of what we do. But once you've actually lost it all, what's left to be afraid of? That's the moment the fear loses its grip on you, and for the first time, you become truly free. This is so brilliantly illustrated by the concept of kintsugi. It's this beautiful Japanese art of fixing broken pottery. But here's the thing. Instead of trying to hide the cracks, they fill them with gold. The whole philosophy is that the object is more beautiful because it was broken. The scars aren't something to be ashamed of. They're a part of its history, its resilience, its unique beauty. So here's the trade-off. This is the crucial shift in perspective. We spend our lives terrified of losing the stuff on the left, our status, what people think of us, our carefully constructed plans. But what people who have hit the bottom discover are the things on the right. This unapologetic freedom to just be you, a deep kind of certainty that doesn't need anyone's approval, and a connection to your true self that was buried under all that other stuff. This is the voice of someone who's been through the fire and come out the other side. The absolute worst thing that could happen has already happened, and that experience forges a mindset that is no longer controlled by what if. They've faced the monster, and they realize they could survive it. Okay, so this new mindset, it's incredibly powerful. But how do you actually translate that feeling into action? How do you start forging a comeback when you are literally starting from nothing? Let's go back to Mohan Valrani. His comeback wasn't some overnight miracle. It was a grueling, decade-long war of attrition. After he decided to stay back in '86, he started rebuilding. His own sons, fresh out of college, they joined him. He famously said he needed their loyalty way more than their experience. It took a full 10 years of grinding, but by 1996, his empire was reborn. So we can actually boil down the wisdom from these stories into a pretty simple framework. First, like Valrani, you have to make that choice to stay, to confront the failure head on. Second, you build a loyal team, people who are really in it with you for the long haul. And third, and this part is absolutely crucial, you shift your focus away from the outcome and on to the process. Athletes know this better than anyone. You can't guarantee a win. The ball might take a weird bounce. The other team might just be having a great day. But what you can control is your work ethic, your discipline, your attitude. That's your process. And by focusing on a consistent, excellent process, you give yourself the best possible chance to win. This all leads to a really fascinating question from the writer Eddie Pinheiro. All these people we've talked about, they discovered their strength after a disaster. But why wait? What if you could build this kind of resilience on purpose, before you actually need it? He calls it forging steel. It makes perfect sense, right? You don't wait for a sword to break in the middle of a battle. You temper it with heat and pressure long beforehand. And you can do this in your own life by intentionally choosing discomfort, jumping in the cold water, having that awkward conversation, standing your ground when it's easier to back down. Each one of those small battles builds the strength you're going to need for the big ones. So all this brings us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. What is actually gained when everything you thought you owned is lost? See, the real gains aren't things you can hold in your hand. They're internal. It's that freedom to just be yourself without asking for anyone's permission. It's a deep kind of certainty that comes from inside you. It's something called anti-fragility, where shocks and failures don't just fail to break you, they actually make you stronger. And ultimately, it's a return to your true self and the simple wisdom of what's real. The ultimate lesson here is that maybe loss itself is an illusion. I know it feels like an ending, but what if it's actually a clearing process? It strips away everything that's temporary, everything that can be taken from you. And in doing that, it reveals the parts of you that are permanent, the parts that are unshakable. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. A crisis can definitely force you to become stronger, but you don't have to wait for it. You can choose to build that resilience right now, to face small discomforts today so you're ready for the big storms of tomorrow. The choice, as always, is yours.